The first thing I'd like to talk about in this session is my girlfriend in Vietnam, who was with me from a couple of weeks after I got there until the last day that I left Vietnam at the end of my third tour of duty. I found her living in a prisoner of war camp. I don't really know if she was a Viet Cong prisoner of war or a North Vietnamese prisoner of war, but she was living in a prisoner of war camp under horrifyingly despicable conditions directly across the concertina barbed wire fence from the compound that I lived in, Company B, 41st Signal Command in Quy Nhon, South Vietnam, from 1966 to early 68. She was young, she was beautiful. I don't know that she's alive, but if she is, she will hear this broadcast on the internet at some point when my work is accepted. And she will know what she always knew, and I think still does. And that is, I was totally in love with her from the first moment that I saw her. There was a custom when I first arrived in Vietnam, in Quy Nhon, that we would have our laundry, if such a thing can be called laundry, done by Vietnamese women prisoners of war on the other side of the concertina barrier that separated us from their prisoner of war camp. And she was the one I chose the first time I had laundry to do, which was within a couple days of arriving in Vietnam, Quy Nhon province. And, or Binh Dinh, I think is actually the province name. But when I got there and saw her, I fell in love, and I had her do my laundry for several weeks. I would pass over a laundry bag over the concertina barrier. She would do the laundry, and a couple days later I would go look for her, and when she had the laundry done, she would appear there at the fence and throw my laundry back. I would then throw money for doing the laundry back to her, and she would throw the bag back. And I spoke my very broken Vietnamese to her, and I knew I was in love with her desperately, and I thought she liked me a lot, but who knows. So after a few weeks of this, in my first weeks in Vietnam, I decided upon a program to have a first date and see how that worked. And so what I did with two of my men, I went to the front gate of the prisoner of war camp, showed a Polaroid picture of her that I'd taken from on top of a bunker inside our compound, and after I had her pose so she'd be back away from any recognizable landmarks, took her picture, developed it in a minute, and then several days later, after having mushed it up a little bit with soil and so forth so it didn't look new, having artificially antiqued it, if you will, I went with one of my men inside the camp, and after telling the guy who was in charge of the guards on that shift, and these were all Vietnamese, South Vietnamese guards, I told him that I was looking for a Viet Cong spy, and I was going to take her for questioning, and he was happy with that. I looked around the camp, I found her, she was kneeling, banging laundry for someone on stones in the water. And you don't want to know any more about this water. And having spotted her, with my bodyguard on my right side and me on the left side, we went up to her. I grabbed her by her left arm and her hair, and he grabbed her by her right arm, and we pulled her up and dragged her out of there. And dragged her roughly until we got her past the front gate. She knew immediately what I was doing. She was very smart. Got her past the front gate, put her in the back seat of my Jeep between my bodyguard and myself, and we drove off. We drove into the center of Quy Nhon, and I then gave her a bag with all my money, with everything I'd purchased as help for her to get started, packs of cigarettes, cake, by the cartons, and chocolate, all the money that I had in my life I gave in presents to her, and told her in broken Vietnamese if she wanted to be my girlfriend, all she needed to do was come the next morning at dawn and come in with the crew of young women who acted as cleaners of our compound to some extent, picked up trash. And the very next morning, she was there, and we were together during all 3 tours of combat in Vietnam that I had. I couldn't convince her, even though she was in love with me, to come to the United States, because she had this bizarre belief that all American men were professional killers. I have no idea how she got that opinion. Maybe by observation and experience. But I hope she's alive, and I hope she hears this message. I still wish I'd been able to take her back to the United States with me. She would have found out we're not all killers all the time. That Americans can be wonderful human beings too. Thank you.